Hello everyone and welcome to another Destiny 2 video. This video is the second part in my seasonal rankings, and if you haven't watched part 1, go check that out. In this video, we will be looking at the 4 seasons in year 3 of Destiny 2, which include Season of the Undying, Season of Dawn, Season of the Worthy, and Season of Arrivals. Much like the last video, I will assign a tier ranking to each season and go into what I like about the season, what I feel is average, and what I don't like about the season. Also, I acknowledge that we have quite a while left in Season of Arrivals, so my current rankings will be based on the experience so far and what is known to be coming in the future of the season. A quick refresher, last video I put Season of the Forge in the B tier, Season of the Drifter in the A tier, and Season of Opulence in the S tier. Alright, now let's hop into the year 3 seasons. Alright, so first I'm going to be placing Season of the Undying into the C tier. Things that I liked from Season of the Undying. The exotics in Season of the Undying were actually pretty decent. We had Ariana's Vow, Leviathan's Breath, and the Monte Carlo, with Ariana's Vow being my personal favorite by a very long shot. Ariana's Vow was and still is good in quite a few endgame activities, especially those endgame activities that contain barrier champions. The patrol events associated with Season of the Undying were actually beautifully designed, and they were kind of challenging while alone, although they got old pretty quick. And a neat little seasonal beat was building the gate behind Ikora and seeing that change week to week. However, things that I thought were just okay in this season, the Vex offensive took place in a nice new environment, the activity was not super compelling, but it didn't fall flat immediately. This was a little bit of a lighter season, and that's kind of okay because it was paired with Shadowkeep, so that kind of balanced it out a little bit, and it wasn't quite as apparent how much content was lacking in Season of the Undying. Now on to things that I didn't like. There was this huge buildup with the portal construction that essentially led nowhere. At the very least, I expected a new area, a new quest, a new type of boss mechanic, but instead we got the same Vex offensive activity with the new boss skin. I mean, I thought they may have brought the Imago loop back from Destiny 1 as a reward, given we were fighting the Undying Mind, but that wasn't the case either. So we had all this build up to something that was no different than what we'd been doing for weeks prior. The seasonal weapons themselves that came from the Vex offensive weren't all that impressive. There isn't a single one that I still use today. Pinnacle weapons weren't impressive either, with the only one that I feel was worthwhile being Randy's throwing knife. If this season hadn't been dropped with Shadowkeep, I'm sure I would have had taken a break from Destiny in this time period. Well, the list of topics that I was able to talk about for Season of the Undying kind of tells you a lot. So we'll just move along to the next season. So I placed Season of Dawn in the A tier. Now Season of Dawn was quite an upgrade from the previous season. Let's get into what I think about that season. We'll start with the exotic weapons. Symmetry was pretty good, and it was actually great when it was useful against champions. Then Devil's Ruin is fun for sidearm users with its dual sidearm fusion rifle like usage. Then my favorite of the season, Bastion. I was waiting forever for a kinetic fusion rifle, and Bungie finally brought it in with this season. The story missions in the season were amazing, because we got to meet Saint 14 for once, and I kind of wish we had these missions as strikes right now. Based on the roadmap, it wasn't entirely clear that we'd even have story missions, so not only was it surprising, but it was a joy to play them and finally meet Saint 14. The Sundial was probably the second best seasonal activity to date, with varied encounters and weekly bosses. The final boss in the Sundial that came towards the end of the season was in a whole new arena and was a more interesting shakeup than the final boss from Vex Offensive. The second big community event occurred this season with the Corridors of Time, and while the reward was an emblem and the Bastion quest, the event itself was really great, and the amount of effort that went in from a large portion of the community was fun. I think even people who didn't actively participate enjoyed watching the event unfold. With the obelisk in the tower towards the end of the season, we basically got infinite weapon farming for any god rolls we may have wanted. There were a lot of great legendary weapons introduced via the Sundial alongside new perks like Vorpal Weapon, which is a much sought after perk even today. Things that I thought were okay this season, the exotic armors introduced were kind of fun but hardly have a use for most players currently. The 3 regular bosses in the Sundial didn't have much variety themselves from week to week. Things that I didn't like this season. The absolute slog of a grind of donating fractaline. Even with macros, it took ages to donate any substantial amount. While the Corridors of Time was a positive, it really was a sour experience when we found out the reward was getting the Bastion quest early. The ritual weapons this season were nearly useless and had next to no interesting characteristics. Alright, so on to the next season that was, well, it was something. Season of the Worthy, I put in the D tier. It was lacking so much so that I put the game down for a large chunk of the season. Prior to Season of the Worthy, this only happened one other time, and that was during the Curse of Osiris expansion. And even then I came back and did some grinding towards the end of it. The things that I liked in Season of the Worthy, although they may be somewhat shallow. I thought the hype around Trials of Osiris was kind of fun. New interesting seasonal mods and builds with the Warmind cells. The Fellwinter story beat and the return of Fellwinter's Lie was cool, just not the community event associated with it. The execution of the live event with the Almighty was really cool, the length not so much. And pyramids on the wall of the bunker was a nice touch. As you notice, most of the things I just listed were pretty minor, so there's not much I enjoyed a whole lot from the season. Things that I thought were just okay from the season: legendary lost sectors were fine and somewhat hard at the beginning, I guess. The exotics this season weren't all that amazing. We had Tommy's Matchbook, which was okay, but not quite as interesting as past seasonal exotics. The Fourth Horseman is very situational and not super practical for endgame content, although it can be fun to use sometimes. And the best exotic of the season was Heir Apparent, and while I didn't care for the way you obtained it via Guardian Games triumphs, the gun itself is super unique and is actually viable in some scenarios, such as the Insurrection Prime boss fight in Scourge of the Past. Now, things that I didn't like in this season: the Seraph Towers are the worst seasonal event yet. It felt annoying to do rather than fun. If matchmaking didn't work, you would have a very difficult time completing this event. The enemies would rush the towers and make it super difficult to complete sometimes. I didn't even bother with the seal for this season because I couldn't be bothered to actually do the flawless version of the event. I don't know, it just didn't feel great to me. The weapons this season weren't really anything special, with the exception being the shotgun from the bunkers. The seasonal story was quite weak. The Almighty was hardly focused on at all besides the beginning and the end of the season. This being the season that they decided to end the creation of ritual weapons surely did not help it in any way. Even when the weapons weren't great, I thoroughly enjoyed pursuing the ritual weapons, so that was a real bummer for this season. And now here we are at Season of Arrivals. I would put this season in the S tier along Season of Opulence. Let's talk about it. Things I like in Season of Arrivals. The Prophecy dungeon is amazing. As soon as I was decently leveled, I went into the dungeon and it was one of the most atmospheric pieces of content yet from Bungie. I then went on to spend most of my time trying to solo flawless the dungeon as soon as I could. I have a video of my full run on my channel if you want to check that out. Also, the storytelling within the dungeon itself regarding the Nine, the darkness, and the foretelling of future content is top notch, including the revelation that Eris never sang to Shaxx and that Orin is still able to communicate with us. The exotics this season are really great. Witherhoard and Ruinous Effigy, two of the most unique exotics to come out, with Witherhoard being one of my all-time favorite exotics. I already have over 4,000 kills on the kill tracker for that weapon. The Contact event, while still a public event, is much more enjoyable than the Seraph Towers, and I don't have any problem just relaxing and running them for a while. We have the Umbral Ingram system, and having agency over our drops again feels really good. The new legendary weapons, with some of my favorite being Cold Denial, check my Godroll video out on that, Dark Drinker 2.0, Boltcaster 2.0, the Forward Path, Hollow Words, and as for perks, Killing, Win, and Unrelenting are welcome additions to the perk pool. This season has some of the most interconnected storytelling yet. Not only are we laying the foundation for Beyond Light and our collision course with the Darkness powers, but we also feel Savathun's present more and more, which pertains to the Witch Queen expansion in 2021. This is one of the most narratively relevant seasons to date. Also, the skyboxes and world changing around us on Io, Titan, Mercury, and Mars are just phenomenal, and often intimidating, especially on Mercury. The unlimited raid loot for raids that are leaving in this fall is another welcome addition. It allows people to farm the exotics, any raid loot they want, especially the armor that isn't being sunset. Things that I think are just okay in this season: focusing Umbral Ingrams for armor stats isn't super great, as it seems like major RNG to even get a high stat roll on those. Having to regrind the exact same weapons we may have, such as Gnawing Hunger due to sunsetting, is not very fun. And Trials wins in the Moment of Triumph and Solstice Armor upgrade objectives are going to deter some players. And as far as things that I don't like, again this season I can't really think of anything, much like Season of Opulence. Again, with my S tier picks, I can't really find anything I don't like, and with a list of things I do like this season, I doubt my rankings will change over the course of it, with things like Solstice of Heroes and new exotics yet to come. Well, that takes me to the end of the video. This is my entire ranking of the Seasons of Destiny since Season of the Forge. If you checked out this video and enjoyed it, hit that like button, and make sure to subscribe. I would also love to hear your seasonal rankings, so post them in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.